a couple of quick announcements before we get started. Get you guys, let you have a chance to sit down and get comfortable. My name is Sarah. I work out of our Austin office, actually. I'm up here to help moderate the panel for tonight. Dallas was my home for about 4.5 years. Been with Quest for about 5 years now in our marketing and IRA specialist departments. Yes, come on up, come on up. If you're a panelist, please come and have a seat. So now I am here to help educate. If you guys are looking to get started self-directing, I can help with that as well. But real quick, we'll just run through these announcements and let you guys have a little bit of insight who Quest is. So we are actually the largest self-directed IRA custodian in Texas, and we're the fastest growing in the nation. We have 20,000 active investor clients all across the country, and we have $2 billion in assets under administration. So that means we kind of know what we're doing. We hold a lot of properties. And then we have $400 million in undirected cash. So if you're a borrower and you're looking for a lender to help with that investment, there are great opportunities in self-directed IRAs that you can turn to, especially here at Quest. But lastly, what I will say is this presentation, like all of the other ones here at Quest, they are for educational purposes only. So we don't give tax, legal, or investment advice. If you do need to seek some sort of advice from that sort of counsel, we would recommend that you go to like a CPA or a tax advisor. So some of the classes that we have coming up here at Quest, we are still trying to keep with our online events, but we're bringing back the live events as well. So as you'll see here, every Tuesday and every Saturday at noon, we have our Lunch and Learns. So the online webinars where you can join from the comfort of your couch, we have those going on, like I said, every Tuesday and Saturday. And then once a month, on the third Tuesday evening of every month, we will have our social like we have tonight. So different topics every month. Obviously tonight it's going to be harvesting your wealth. But next month we invite you to come out for speed networking and an ugly sweater party. So we kind of like to stick with the themes of the month. So we're going to stick with that Christmas theme tomorrow, next month. Couple last things here. If you want to recatch them, we do stream them all on Facebook and YouTube, so you'll have that opportunity. So this is what I was mentioning. Next month's social is going to be speed networking at our Ugly Sweater Party. We will be streaming it online, so if you want to join the Houston and Austin ones as well, there is a lot of opportunity to network in that chat box. If you have a deal or a service, or you just kind of want to meet people, that's a great opportunity as well. We have a lot of people join the SDIRA socials online and the happy hours. I'd say probably about 50 plus people, so those are going to be good opportunities too if you want to join. But definitely come in and join us on December 21st in office, kind of like the one that we're having tonight. The next one for next month is going to be on the 21st. And then our last announcement, the biggest announcement of the night, is going to be for QuestCon Live. That is our biggest online event that we put on for the year. We've got about 25 experts all across the nation that are going to be joining us from that. We've got an Ask the Experts panel, and if you have ever joined one of our events, you know that the Ask the Experts panel is a load of fun. We have Quincy, who is the president of Quest, joining us with a lot of his friends, and they kind of banter back and forth, and it's a really good time. But on top of that, there's going to be a lot of education, kind of where we were in 2021 and what we can expect for 2022. Right now, early bird pricing is no longer available, but if you do want to get signed up tonight, I will honor that early bird pricing just for this evening. I'm not going to tell my manager about that, so if y'all want to get signed up, tonight's the night to do it. Okay, well, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. And if y'all want to turn the mic on over there, and we will just kind of go down the line. I've got obviously 4 experts here with us. Here, I'll get you started. And obviously tonight's topic is going to be how these panelists were able to harvest their wealth, whether that be with an IRA or not. So let's go ahead and get started. If you want to get us kicked off with who you are, what
Okay. I'm happy to be here. I'm Lisa Landry, and I have an interior design business called Landry Designs that specializes in multifamily investing, decorating across the country. But I'm also a multifamily syndicator, and just recently closed on my first property as a co-GP, like a 108 unit property, $10 million. So it's a whole new world. But I'm here to kind of talk about how I got into real estate and multifamily investing, and then also how I've used IRAs with my investors to allow them to get in. So that's kind of the basics.
Hello, Kristen Gerst with Capricorn Mortgage. I have been doing this since 2005 full-time. I was a Section 8 landlord. I had 61 units that I was self-managing, and I hated my life when the market crashed in '08. This guy over here to my right got me into owner financing, taught me how to do it, started owner financing everything, turned everything in my portfolio into paper. And then 2015, I started Capricorn Mortgage because there was a need for owner finance investors to be able to sell their mortgage notes that they created. So now I buy and sell mortgage notes almost exclusively. And I do have an Airbnb company on the side, which is supposed to be a hobby, but it's not anymore. It takes most of my time. Love real estate. As far as IRAs, Haley Gant, who is not here, I hope she's watching. Hey, Haley. She has been on me for years to open my own self-directed IRAs. I finally did in the form of Coverdale accounts. If you have children, they are invaluable. They will allow you to pay for your kids' private school tax-free. So I've got 2 boys in private school that are going to university, and you can use them all the way up till age 30 in grad school. And it basically allows me to pay for private school and college in half the time, which is what I'm doing. Instead of giving 50 cents of every dollar away to the government, I get to keep that and pays for private school. So that's a huge focus here. I'm opening up a couple more self-directed IRA accounts here in the next couple weeks. And I also do, for smaller notes, that I participate them with Quest IRA holders, especially for all of you IRA holders who only have like $5,000 or $10,000 and you want to put it to work, but how do you make anything on them? So I will participate and pool, and you get to buy a set share of a note for $5 or $10 grand. So it's a good way to just kind of start note investing and get your IRA building.
I like paying for college twice. Not really. That would have been a great idea. Unfortunately, I'm out of that phase. My name is Scott Horn, and I am a real estate and title attorney. Is my real title here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I specialize in working with real estate investors, both in the law firm as well as the title office statewide. We are real estate investment operations. I've been very fortunate over the years to have bought and rehabbed over 3,500 single-family homes. We are hard money or asset-based lenders. I've been doing that since '97. From '97 to '09, we were Texas's largest hard money lender. We've done about 4,000 hard money loans. Today, we're back in our marketplace under GOAT funding. What I really do, though, is the creative finance world, which involves everything from closing creative finance transactions to creating them, creating the mortgages, doing loan processing, loan servicing. We created a company a few years back called the Owner Finance Network, which is everything seller finance, because we think this is truly the best wealth-generating mechanism out in the marketplace. And under this umbrella, we provide legal services, title services for the closings, note pro services if you need help in structuring a seller finance transaction, whether you're buying or selling it, loan servicing, loan processing services, and a brand new company called OFN Lending, so we can comply with the new wrap lending laws coming down on January the 1st, 2022. If you haven't seen that, take a moment, visit our website at theownerfinancenetwork.com, and you'll see a video on there about the new wrap lending law, the ins and outs, and the things that we may or may not have to do. Over the years, I will tell you, I've created thousands of owner finance mortgages. I have sold probably 2,500 owner finance mortgages into the secondary marketplace to both corporate entities, to individuals, to IRAs, and things of that nature. And of course, here tonight, we talk about IRAs. I do have my own self-directed Roth IRA, which is 100% real estate vested. And I will just tell you, it's fun. It takes a little bit of work, but I love the opportunity to manage my own account versus letting somebody manage my money market account or something of that nature. I'm able to buy houses in that entity. I'm able to buy houses with creative financing into my IRA. I can use a limited amount of cash to generate high yield and returns. I can buy and sell houses, allow me to buy and multiply that through multiple scenarios, and it's a great tool and a great vehicle. I just wish I knew all your secrets a few years back. It would have been nice to have. So we'd love to help you guys out with anything that in that genre we can do for you.
Hi, my name's Taylor Ford. I have a problem with speaking quickly. I apologize in advance. I haven't done one of these in about 2 years since COVID, so a little nervous, so hopefully you guys can bear with me. You guys can understand me. I appreciate that, Scott. Well, okay. So Doctor 911, we're another doc prep service. From your legal documents to your owner finance, to your note sales, to your encroachment agreements, we're more on the curative side. So if you run into an issue and you need help clearing up your title, that's kind of more our forte, but we also do a lot of lender packages, owner finance, hard money, private money, all those kind of documents. A little background about me. I've been in the title industry for about 10 years between oil and gas, a foreclosure law firm, and a little bit of actually a title company. So yeah.
What title company?
Patton?
You were with Patton. Oh, Patton. It's okay. We'll talk later.
Fair enough. So I got involved with it back in the title company side, whenever helping people kind of get, their documents kind of in order. And I think I've been involved in 2,000 to 3,000 owner finance or hard money deals, but just got in there, like I said, through the law firm, through the title company side.
I have to go to a place far, far and a long, long time away from me, going back some 30 years. I know I don't look that old. Yeah, I know. Okay, it may be. Of course, back in the 80s, I started learning creative finance. I've had a job once in my life for about a year when the crash hit in '86. And you were forced to learn other things at that point in time and somehow got into the creative finance world. I will say I didn't know a lot about the business. Started back in 1988 where I bought my first house as an investment. One turned into 2, turned into 8, turned into 20 a month, and on and on and on. And what you learn real quick in the investment business is that you cannot buy a large volume of homes on a monthly basis, because if you buy 20 houses in the first month and you buy 20 houses the next month and 20 houses the next month, you're not selling 20 houses a month. You're really compiling as you're getting the repairs done and going to market. And we had to find a creative mechanism that would work to get these houses cash flow projecting. I was very fortunate back then, and we brainstormed with guys like Craig Pettit, who was one of the first hard money lenders here in the DFW area, a gentleman by the name of Todd Etter, who was one of the first mortgage buyers in the DFW area and went nationwide, with Ken D'Angelo, who started Homevestors, and us, and we would collaborate on how to create creative techniques to make things work. We didn't have events like this that would teach you how to do these things. We didn't have the internet to figure those kind of things out, so we had to sit down at lunch and try to work through them in some format. Back then, we were able to do a lot of fun things, from lease purchases, lease options, contract for deeds, things that are more difficult to do today with owner-occupied properties. But we learned how to take creative techniques and get our properties income producing that would allow us to season our notes and eventually pool and then sell our notes into the secondary marketplace. And when you look back in hindsight, it was a great business model. Wish I could say I was smart enough to have known what I was doing. I didn't. Just was, you do what it takes to make business work. From there, we've gone through the various transitions from the old FHA non-qualifying loans. Does anybody actually remember those in this room? Maybe one or two of us at most. To the 1990s, when you could buy houses so cheap you didn't need to buy them for creative financing. To the 2000s and the subprime days, when if you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan. But then the 2008, 2009 crash hit, and the whole world came crumbling down around our ears, and people were looking for solutions. And that catapulted itself into, I think, the creative finance world again. And what's fun is that since that point in time, the note sale business is finally coming back. It was great back in the 80s and 90s. It died in the early 2000s. But now that industry is resurging because investors are looking for good ways to invest money. And I think, again, that note business is one of the best ways to generate and create wealth, whether you do it yourself or you buy mortgages or you buy partial mortgages or whatever it might be.
Yeah, so, and I would totally agree with everything he just said. You know, when I knew back probably 2013, 2014 that there was a huge need for somebody to be able to buy mortgage notes. And I was, you know, you attempt to sell a note, and even nowadays I hear from everybody. They're like, well, somebody will give me an offer on it, but then they never close, or, you know, 2 months goes by. It took me a good year and a half to figure out how to do it. My buyers are, you know, I couldn't even get into their lobby unless I had $5 million in mortgages on a sheet. In 2017, I did $26.1 million in mortgage note sales. And that was just 2017. Once I finally figured out what the heck I was doing. But again, it takes capital. It's capital intensive, so you have to have money, which is a huge barrier to entry to most, to actually be able to do like a huge note buy and selling business. Right now, my goal is to buy and sell about 5 to 10 million a month. My only inhibitor on that is being able to actually get a hold of paper. So I'm constantly out marketing for paper to buy. You know, I get probably 1 to 2 notes a day. Can I buy all of them? Nope. You know, some of them are garbage. I only buy really great paper that has high interest rates on it, between usually 9 and 10. I mean, I can buy lower stuff, but then my offer is a lot lower. The one thing I found was, you know, my offers tend to be 10 to 15% higher than everybody else in the marketplace. I know I'm not getting bid out by anybody, and that's how I'm able to do the large volume that I need to do. My margins are small, but I can, you know, I can present $5 million to my buyers, you know, several times a month. So anyways, yeah, I don't know, any other questions on, you know, getting into real estate? My real estate career has just evolved from rentals to owner financing those rentals when the renters moved out, to then transitioning to mainly investing in mortgage notes. I'm doing a lot of buying non-performing notes now as well, which have a, I don't find it very risky, but you do tie up capital for a longer period of time when you buy non-performers. There's more work involved that I don't like. I primarily enjoy buying performing mortgages because they're performing from the get-go, and I don't have to do anything. They just go and sit in my portfolio. When you're talking about non-performers, there's a lot more work to do, but your returns on investment can be huge. 50, 60, 80, 90% in some cases on a return on investment. So, or higher, but 90% is the highest that I have seen thus far. Anyways, so always good. If you have questions about non-performing notes, let me know. I'm teaching another class on buying and selling notes. It was supposed to be Thursday, but I think I'm doing it Monday over at Rogers Group, Natari. So check that one out if you want to go learn more about investing in non-performers.
Okay, well, I have a completely different story. I started my interior design business like 20 years ago out of my home and joined a franchise actually and grew that business to the #1 franchise worldwide out of the whole company, out of hundreds of franchise owners, kept moving to bigger and bigger spaces and had, we did very well. We were published in all kinds of magazines, won all these awards, spoke at all these events, that kind of thing, which is super fun. But then about 12 years ago, a property management company contacted me. His name was Doug, and he said, Lisa, I found you on your website, and I'm a property manager in the area for apartment complexes. And I manage 45 properties, and I need somebody to help me redo these properties. Like 10 of them need major CapEx work done this year. And I'm like, I don't even know what CapEx is. I don't know what you're talking about, I've never worked on apartments. We've done a lot of commercial and residential, but never apartment complexes. So anyway, I went to meet him to look at a couple of them. In my mind, I had these really nice apartments, when I pulled up. And when I pulled up, they were not nice apartments. I was trying to say, keep your face neutral, like don't let him see that you're surprised at how these look, Well, the whole concept is value add, which I knew nothing about. So anyway, I looked at the leasing office, which I called a clubhouse, but they call it the leasing office. We looked at the model unit, the pool area, and I was like, well, we can do this. This is what we do for residential and commercial. So we did those 10 in 1 year for him, completely redid them. They were all B and C class properties, so not fancy at all. But I entered 5 of them into an international design contest that was judged by magazine editors from across the country. And it was just in the commercial category. They didn't even have a multifamily category. So I just entered them in commercial. And they won first, second, and third in that contest of the whole thing. So I was like, I love multifamily. So anyway, I started learning more and more about that. And about maybe 3 years ago, my son started saying, Mom, you need to start thinking about investing in real estate. My dad is a commercial realtor. He probably has 25 homes, just single-family homes. My son has bought 13 or 14 single-family homes, and he now owns 2 residential assisted living facilities. And he's like, you got to get your money out of the stock market and put it in real estate. And so I thought, well, I'll do some research. So I started researching, and then you have to pick your asset class. There's all these different asset classes. There's mobile home parks and storage units and houses, and when I came across multifamily, I thought, well, this is the only thing that I really know something about. So I'm going to research this and just see. So I started listening to tons and tons of podcasts. I went to what I call Podcast University and listened to hundreds of multifamily podcasts and learned so much during that process. And then I started going to events. So I started attending every multifamily conference that I could find. And what I found is, multifamily is really for the regular person to invest in, and that's not what I thought at all. I thought you had to be really wealthy. I thought it was just all these millionaires buying these apartments, but it's a syndication where people group their money together and buy. So that's what really intrigued me because I'm not, a multimillionaire or anything, and just realized that I could be an apartment owner. So I started going to conferences, and I ended up joining a mentorship group, which I joined the Sumrock group, Brad Sumrock's group here in the Dallas area, and just met the most amazing people, just normal people that are doing this. And that's how I got involved. So I started investing passively first as a limited partner, they call it, where I didn't have anything to do with the day-to-day operations of the property, and just kind of learned the process going through that. And then, just in September, I co-sponsored a syndication where I'm the lead, one of the leads on the purchase. And like I mentioned, it's a $10 million property. And I'm one of the asset managers, and I still have my design business, and we have a team of 20 working out of an 18,000 square foot studio, and it's kind of running itself now, and we're doing properties across the country now for multifamily. But it's fun to learn something new and do something different. And what I really found going through the process are the tax benefits. And so that's part of what I think we should really talk about towards, later on, is if you're, a high income earner, how can you shelter some tax, or get some tax benefits? And that was very appealing to me as a business owner. So there's lots of ins and outs of it, but I definitely am in the multifamily space because of the economies of scale versus single-family homes. I see what my son goes through buying all these single-family homes and the work that's involved in that, and it's very difficult to scale. So for our property, 108 units, if you have 1 or 2 vacancies, you could still pay the rent. You know, you can still pay your mortgage payment because all these other people are still there. So it's an interesting world, and I think a super fun world, and I'm learning a lot as I go along and looking to purchase probably 4 properties next year.
Different group of people up here. Now, I have a question for the audience. Raise your hand. Now, I know a lot of the times there are things that come up. Our panelists, what are some things you learned along the way early?
Okay, and I'll pass along the thing that's, again, about multifamily is that even though you're buying B and C class properties, the leasing office, the pool area, the amenities should look like an A class property. And that's a big learning curve, I think, for people that buy these older properties. They don't really think that they should put that kind of money into the amenities. But when you do, and you get those images on the website, and that's where people buy, or rent is basically from the website, it can make a huge difference. So all the ones that we've worked on through the years, that's what we've done, and that's what flips that switch where the tenant base can be elevated. The rents can go up, and the properties sell for way, way more than they purchased.
What do I wish I would have done better? I would have to say be patient. Every time I'm not patient, or I'm freaking out because my owner finance property hasn't sold, or I haven't gotten a renter for it, and I decide that I don't need to take 10% down and I can work with whatever meager down payment they have, I have always been proven wrong. The worst one was the case of the fake blind man. He drove, you love the story, don't you? Everybody loves the story. So he drives up to the house. I'm meeting the guy, right, to show him.
Blind man drives to the house?
Yes, he drives to the house. Right there, right? And right. So the fake, and I don't know that he's blind yet. Right. So anyways, he drives up, gets out, loves the house, of course he does. Hey, can you work with me on the down payment? I get my money from the government. And I go, oh, he goes, I'm on disability. And I go, oh, you're on disability. He looks perfectly normal. Oh, you've got a disability. He goes, yeah, I'm blind. And I kind of looked at him and looked at his car. He goes, yeah, I'm blind. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, okay, so he's obviously a con and he's fraud. But
Four self-driving cars?
no, this guy just drove. So anyways, fast forward 6 months, the man loses his disability because he got too many speeding tickets. And then it took me another 3 or 4 months to get this man out of this house and get it back because he obviously wasn't paying, or maybe it was 6. But here's the rub. He shows up at eviction court. I actually had to go evict this guy. He shows up at eviction court with the girlfriend on the arm, dark glasses, the cane, the whole bit. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And I'm pissed, right? And I know I can't show that I'm pissed, but I'm pissed. So I'm standing out there with the judge, and I'm just trying to smile. And he goes, well, Judge, we have a problem here because she's evicting my girlfriend, my fiance here. And I go, well, she's the one that I've been communicating with via email. And, and she goes, oh, do you have those emails? I go, yeah, I printed them all out here. And I hand them to the judge. And I kid you not, you can't make this up. He lifts up his glasses and goes, Judge, could I see those? And she kind of looks at me, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, and so she hands him to him, and then he starts to read them. And you could just see that woman, like, if she was a cartoon character, the steam would have been blowing out of her ears. And she just puts the gavel down. She's like, case dismissed. And I was like, all right. So I won because he was fake blind. Anyways, so yeah, don't, if somebody's a con and a fraud, you know what? Don't do business with those people. And always do the right thing and do what you're supposed to. You know the rules. If you're doing owner finance out there, take 10% down. Don't take a shortcut. As soon as you start taking shortcuts or doing the wrong thing, you're going to get burned somewhere down the line, most likely.
Amen, amen. Been there, done that? Oh, we could tell stories until about 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't want to do that. Number one, never pay a contractor in advance until the work's done and inspect the work. Number two, turn out a quality project if you're buying houses in your IRA or someplace else. Number three, if you are in the creative finance game, process your buyer correctly. Stay compliant with the changing laws, at least here in Texas. Other states are a lot easier, but Texas is kind of a little more difficult. And again, get a little bit educated in what you're doing so you can protect yourself. If you are buying a note, and guys, I have seen so many things in my days where I have seen sellers giving their buyers money in the parking lot to bring to the closing table at our title office when we're closing the transaction, because they're going to do a simultaneous note sale, and they want to make it appear that the buyer actually made a down payment in that regard. So if you can say fraud, that's what it's about, and it happens every day of the week. But if you're going to participate or buy in a note, if you have the ability, know who the investor was who originated the loan. Know that they did a decent job, because you're not going to be able to inspect the house. It's occupied by an owner-occupant. And there are way too many investors that put lipsticks on pigs. They sell the property for max value at max interest rates, and all they're doing is setting their buyer up to fail. And if you're buying a note into your IRA or someplace, it's going to take the loss eventually out there. And so it's learning how to vet these things as best as you can, and don't just go into the transaction blindly because the numbers look good. All too often, I've seen, and here lately with many different instances where, I'm just going to throw one example out too, where a local investor bought a house, used a hard money lender who put a 30-day note on the property, 30 days. The investor sold this home in a not too desirable part of town to a Hispanic family at max value, doing zero work on the property. So was the property worth what they sold it for? No, it was worth a heck of a lot less. And of course, their intent was to sell that note to a note buyer immediately. Well, guess what didn't happen? The note didn't sell. And eventually the law firm, wasn't me, wasn't Taylor, had to buy that loan back because of the way it was generated and created. So a little bit of knowledge will take you a long way. Learning some just simple concepts. Watch out for the blind man and things of that nature out there, and it'll do you well as you move forward in your investments.
So my experience is going to be a little bit different than theirs. It's going to be more secondhand on the legal side. But some of the wisdom I could pass on for some of the deals we've been a part of: if you're going to do owner finance, know what USRI is, know what the cap is, know what Dodd-Frank is, know what the SAFE Act is. Making sure you're using the RMLOs to make sure your loans are going to be compliant, and making sure you're talking to the right people. And if you're looking to buy property, make sure that the person signing your contract actually owns the property. And if there's multiple heirs on there, understand that everybody that's going to be an owner of that property is going to have to sign off on the contract. Because 9 times out of 10, whenever you get one of those contracts, you have a great deal, person claims to own it, and you find out that they have 3 brothers in jail that aren't going to be a part of your contract, and you start doing your work, and you find out that you're stuck then with a contract on where you can never close.
Call me on those, and we'll buy half the house. I want to make one last quick comment, if you don't mind. In Texas, and again, it's just Texas only, this new wrap lending law coming down January the 1st. What concerns me are investors who buy notes We want to be certain that that note was properly originated, not just with SAFE Act, Dodd-Frank, Property Code, et cetera, but all these new finance issues we got to think about, because the note could be void, not voidable, but void, and we want to make sure we're doing things the right way. And so just one of the things we're doing is incorporating a new affidavit into our closing packages, just for an affirmation to try and protect not just us, but our seller from themselves, as well as any future note buyer might be out there as well.
Okay, so we're gonna switch gears just a little bit. Obviously, you guys are here because you are familiar with get involved with self-directed IRAs,
I became friends with y'all. And you basically were like, well, how many podcasts have we done together? I mean, I don't know how many, like a lot, either with you or Haley or me, Jay Lee. So we're constantly talking about self-directed IRAs and all the benefits of them. I wish I had gotten started a lot earlier than what I did. And, you know, I plan on doing a health savings account as well coming 2022, because you don't know what health costs are going to be going on in the future. Well, hey, you can build up a couple $1 million in your self-directed health savings account by, you know, I'm already, I don't know, in 6 months, I'm already in 6 figures for my kids' educations. So if you are diligent on it and constantly investing and buying into it, yeah, you could build up these accounts very, very quickly. Yeah, I'm in effect wholesaling in and out of them, but you know, I'm also purchasing Airbnbs right now, and as Lorraine and David know here about my traveling nurses housing that I absolutely love, because those people stay like 2 or 3 months. You don't have to pay hotel tax on it. There's a world of benefit to doing it. And there's just not enough of it. So I am full non-stop for those. So if I could like clone and get another 20 units here in Dallas tomorrow, I would do that, because I have a waiting list. So far this week, I'm handing out other leads, because right now I've got over 20 nurses looking for housing starting in December. But yeah, how did I get started in IRA investing? Just with my friends, hanging out with my Quest friends. And I think it's a really great way to build wealth. My self-directed IRA that I'm bringing in from my old Garland Independent School District teaching pension, I'm porting that in and turning it into a Roth. And then I can start pulling money out of that at 59.5 tax-free. So I'll look forward to that someday. There you go.
Well, same thing. Haley and Manny were the ones that I met from Quest, and they have spoken at several events that I have been to. So I didn't really know anything about self-directed IRAs, and I've just been learning about it over the last year or so. But what I did remember is when I started the syndication and started getting investors and doing a capital raise, that I remember them saying that people could use their self-directed IRAs. So I had several friends actually that were saying, well, I've got my money, you know, like tied up in places. And I'm like, well, do you have an IRA? And they're like, yeah, I do. And so several of them converted over to a self-directed IRA and were able to invest in multifamily. And, you know, there's specific things you have to do about it and a certain way you have to do it, and it does take a little bit of time to do it. So that's my recommendation, is if anyone's considering doing that for an investment, make sure that you allow enough time to get it moved and approved and all those kinds of things. But they were super excited that they were able to use it, and you know, now they're apartment owners also.
So I started out learning about, of course, 401ks within the scope of my company for us and for our employees. That then led itself into creating SEPs along the way as well for myself and my wife. But then we were able to eventually roll those into an IRA. So the question is do you want to invest money into your IRA that is pre-tax or post-tax? And I am a post-tax guy all the way. So I was able to create our Roth IRA and put it in there and contribute at least into the IRA up until we hit the threshold for income. We couldn't do it. So now what we have to do, though, is we have to find a mechanism to increase the wealth within the scope of that Roth IRA. And although it does take a little bit more work than letting some mutual fund guy manage your wealth for you, learning how to work within the scope of the real estate game that I play in, whether it's buying or selling notes, buying or selling properties, using creative techniques to buy or sell inside of that in order to maximize returns on investments, is what it's all about. It is not a short-term game, it is a long-term game, just like anything is to generate wealth, but it's a great mechanism to do it, and in order to generate that wealth tax-free, and thank goodness they didn't pass that tax to try to tax us on our IRAs that they were thinking about previously. But just taking the time to figure that out. And sometimes you may want to have both your own, a standard IRA as well as a Roth IRA, one that you might be able to participate in pre-tax, one post-tax, and navigate them both in the same mechanism as best you can. But start soon, start often, and there's no one really young in this room, I don't think. By that I mean one in their early 20s, but it's an excellent mechanism to start learning how to generate wealth in that regard.
My involvement with IRAs has been that helping people paper their transactions, because IRAs make great vehicles for buying and holding property or for loaning money for hard money loans. So like I said, it's been helping people paper those up to make sure that whenever you're buying the property, it's going to the correct entity, so that way you're not got trouble selling it. And if you're loaning out of your IRA, to make sure that that loan is properly secured to the property. Well, again, I might be biased, but a good attorney, whenever you're doing real estate, it's worth his weight in gold. So find somebody you trust to make sure that you're getting all these things papered correctly. Because a little bit of work on the front end is going to save you a lot of time, hassle, and money on the back end.
I will second that as the fellow attorney up here who is his direct competitor in that regard. It's a knowledge base of the industry, and take the time to learn how to make this work for you. I think Kristen said earlier, know some of the things that you get into. Just whatever the mechanism is, whether you're going to be a lender, understand what your role is, be cautious. We don't want to lend to owner occupants per se. Understand some of the new rules that are coming down in the owner finance world to ensure that if you're buying mortgages, that you do things properly. Educate yourself as best as possible. You don't need to be an expert. You got guys like us who can help navigate you through those kind of scenarios along the way. If you find good people like Kristen who understand the note world a little bit, we hope she's knowledgeable in those things too. Hope. But no, she is. It's just simply have a good knowledge base of what you're doing, and don't be scared of doing it. Go make it happen.
Okay, I would set a goal and go, all right, I'm going to read 3 books and then I'm going to go do this. I think the biggest problem with newbie real estate investors out there is they just don't pull the trigger. If you want to be a real estate investor, you got to have the guts, you got to ante up, and you got to put it on the table. Now, does that mean go out and do something stupid? No, I didn't say that. You know, I read 3 books back in 2004. And I was like, I can do this. What did I do? I'm like, oh, I read this book called Duplexes, Triplexes, and Quads. And I was like, cool, right? So why buy a single family house when I could buy a 4-plex and get, 4 times the rent coming in? I had a realtor who lived next door, and he showed me some 4-plexes, and then he found an 8-plex. I ended up buying an 8-plex. My first time out, a block off the corner, the intersection of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Oh, that's right. And I was as blonde back then as I am now. I was young, I was dumb, and I was unafraid. And I ended up making a ton of money off of that building. I earned every penny. In fact, I would venture to say I earned every half penny down there. And I don't go down there anymore. But you know, there is nothing that can replace on the ground experience. And I can tell you to this day, I learn something new with every renovation project that I'm doing. If you all follow me on social media, you know, I got a gem of one going on right now where, you know, it's just finding storage for all this stuff and creating, you know, what do we need to create? And you're gonna do things at certain projects, at certain properties that work so well. You had one bathroom design and it was off the charts at this one house, and then you went and put it in a different bathroom at a different house and it would just look terrible, and you're like, God, I just don't get it. So you're gonna learn something along the way at every project you do and everything you buy. Find what you like, find what turns you on, what you're passionate about, and pull the trigger and go do it. Because analysis paralysis is the biggest inhibitor to, I'd have to say, 90+% of people wanting to do this. And if you've got no money, if you're literally sitting there with no money, you can do this with no money. You know, I'm a big believer in OPM. I don't like to use my monies. My monies stay in the bank, you know, or take me on vacation. I like to use other people's monies to do this. And it's out there and you can find it. So again, even if you're just gonna start assigning contracts, wholesaling, great way to build up some cash. But get out there and do it. Cool?
Okay, for new real estate investors, and again, I'll come at it from the multifamily angle if you're interested in that at all, it's definitely a team sport. So figuring out, what do you like to do? Which part do you enjoy doing? What do you bring to the table? And just some of the tools that you have to use in these properties is, do you want to be a deal finder? So then you start to get to know brokers and build relationships there. Do you want to be a capital raiser? And then you're bringing in limited partners. Do you want to just be a limited partner, or do you want to be an active investor? So those are some things to think about. Do you want to be an asset manager? Do you like the day-to-day of a renovation, overseeing, you know, remodels and that kind of thing? And even if you're doing residential, maybe you're teaming up with other people and trying to get your, you know, your avenue, stay in your lane, and you do this and somebody else do this, and then you work together as a team. So even there are investors that are out-of-state people who need boots on the ground here locally, and you can learn and grow that way as well. And the IRA investors, again, I would just say that make sure that you get with Quest early and be proactive and be ready to go when a good deal comes along, that all your stuff is in place and you're, you know, like Kristen said, ready to pull the trigger.
And let me second that, because, you know, I do sell some notes to IRA investors. Primarily, I buy notes from individuals. You know, I don't like to sell one-offs. I'll do it, but primarily I'm selling to large hedge funds and REITs. But, you know, when I do come to somebody and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna buy this with my self-directed IRA, and then I find out that they haven't even opened their account yet, that irritates me to no end. So, you know, make sure your accounts are open, that you know the process to go through. And if you don't know your paperwork, oh my gosh, I'm like a whiz at most self-directed IRA paperwork now. So, you know, ask questions and always ask for help. You know, if you don't know, just speak up and go, hey, I'm brand new at this. And you'll be surprised at how many people really want to help you succeed.
I love that. That's a great point. You know, it really doesn't take too long to get started. Thank you for all the input.
People, the people that are hanging out there in Facebook world can't hear me without the microphone. Okay, so first, thank all you guys for being here and sharing your experience and knowledge. I love what you said, Lisa, about this being a team sport. It really is. And Taylor, everything you said about notes earlier, can you translate that back into English and tell us again? No, I'm more on the multifamily end of things, so I'm not familiar with some of the jargon that you used for the notes. So if you could just kind of give me a 30-second summary of what to look for in investing in notes.
Sure. So are you talking about whenever you're originating or whenever you're purchasing?
Probably.
So either way, whenever you're doing it, just make sure that, especially if it's owner-occupied, that it was originated properly. After the crash, there was a lot of new laws that came out that regulate owner financing. Dodd-Frank's the big one. Everyone hears about it. That's the one you need to be most aware of. There's also the SAFE Act here in Texas. There's the Property Code. There's the Texas Constitution. There's a lot of laws that go and regulate these. It's a lot for anyone to remember. So it's why it's very important to use an experienced real estate attorney. And then the other thing we kind of talked about was usury. Usury is a very fun word. There is a cap on how much interest you can accrue in a year. Does anybody know what that is? 18%. If it goes over that, the loan could be usurious. If it's usurious, you're going to forfeit your principal, you're going to forfeit your interest, and you may even get some criminal procedures against you.
So when you're asking about what you should look for when you're buying a note, let me just go through what I look for when I'm buying a note. I look at borrower underwriting. Now, as long as it was originated, if it was originated before 2014, there's a good chance that there is no borrower underwriting on it. I have to be able to recreate that. And so I work with the originator, the owner of that note, and we do a brand new application on the borrower if one was never done. I pull credit on every single borrower for every note that I buy. The other due diligence that I put it through, I have a legal secretary that I have on staff. She reviews every word and every line in the deed of trust, warranty deed, and note. You would be amazed at the errors that I find on notes. And they're egregious. The most egregious error I ever found, there were 3 numbers behind to the right of the decimal point in the body of the note. And that it was like 1006.007. And I remember 007 because James Bond, right? And then what was written out was like $846. I mean, it wasn't even close. So that meant that whoever created that document didn't read it. The attorney that should have been approving that document didn't read it. The seller, the originator, the borrower, the closing attorney, the escrow, nobody read this document. So I have a legal secretary that goes through everything and vets it. I vet the borrower. I make sure that I have contact info like emails, telephone numbers. I also am very stringent on, most importantly, who's servicing that note. Is it serviced by a licensed note servicer? Now, we will take a payment history if it's being serviced by the originator, by the lender. I will require proof in the form of showing canceled checks, like from their online banking for the last 2 years. I then pay my note servicer, my personal one, who's awesome, August REI, highly recommend them. They have somebody there who I send all of the copies of these canceled checks, and they build me an official payment history for those. So again, I need to know, is this thing current? Are they paying? What day of the month are they paying on? And I need to be able to present all of that. I also make sure that all documents are correct. And if there's errors on the documents, we have to file correction affidavits on those documents in order to buy it. So it's a huge thing. And on top of that, title. We pull title on everything, and I make sure that there's a title policy on every single note that I buy, because I don't want, if this note goes bad, like let's say whoever I'm selling it to, that they're insured. So if it goes bad, they can put a claim against it on the title policy. So I would make sure that if you're looking at possibly buying a note, a one-off from somebody, that it comes with a lender's title policy, and that somebody has read all of these documents and looked at all of that. Again, not all note sellers and note brokers are the same, so you need to know who you're buying from and what you're doing. Anybody else?
I'm going to ask a question, probably, Christy. Are there states that you try and stay away from? I know, like, personally, when I'm looking for notes, I have states
Sure.
like New Jersey where I don't want anything from there. But
Great question. I hate New York. I hate New Jersey. I don't like California. North Carolina, South Carolina, no. If it's a non-performing note, I love Ohio, Pennsylvania, primarily because I have a guy that I just call up and I'm like, hey, you want this? And he always says yes. So I can just wholesale that off real fast. It's great. As far as characteristics of a note, my threshold is 80% loan to value. If I find something that's above it, like let's say 85%, that means that I'm going to subtract 1 percentage point from my offer to get it back to 80. So it'll just lower. It could be a fantastic note, but if it's above, don't go high on those loan to values, especially now, right? There's a good shot we're looking at a market correction. So if you go in and you pay too much money for that note, all of a sudden it could be underwater. And if that person, if you have to foreclose and take that note back, and now, you're actually going to lose some principal because the note is underwater. So be very careful with those loan to values. I typically like to buy things that are like 65, 70% loan to value. Those are, where you're going to get my best price. Because those are safe. I don't know how many, I'm approaching $50 million in sales, somewhere around there. That's a lot for me to guarantee, which I do offer a guarantee to anybody who buys a note from me, that if these people never make a payment, I'm gonna buy that thing back. So I need to make sure that, I put my money where my mouth is. And if I'm gonna be selling something like that, I need to make sure that it's good and it's not something that I'm gonna have to take back. So, but loan to value, number one thing, honestly, look at when you're looking to buy a note, look at how long it takes to foreclose in that area. I was just recently up in Chicago last weekend. I went and looked at property. I also looked at some non-performing notes. But when I met with an attorney to talk to him about it, he was saying that it was going to be upwards of about 2 to 3 years to actually foreclose in Cook County. So this was in everything that I wanted. I'm like, I want this cool brownstone, right, downtown Chicago. I don't want to be out in the burbs. So again, just make sure and call up a local real estate attorney and just say, how long is it taking to foreclose right now, start to finish? You'll find that that's the same story in New York, especially if it's in the 5 boroughs right now. You're looking 2 to 3 years. And that's what that's what my note people are telling me. The ones who invest in New York, they're like, if you can get a court date, it'll be years down the road.
All right, last chance. I'll throw it over to somebody else if they want to ask a question. All right. So on the multifamily side, Lisa, what do you recommend that if I put my investor hat on and I'm thinking about looking at a multifamily investment, what would I look at and how would I vet the team and the deal on a multifamily side?
Yeah, and that's where I was, a couple of years ago when I was looking to invest. And looking back on it now, I really just trusted the team that I chose, the syndication team that I chose. I think I should have done a little more due diligence on the actual property myself, and the location of it, but I was so new, I just didn't really know. And it has not lost money, it's just not cash flowed. So that one, when it sells, will be very profitable. It's just not a cash flow situation. So I think, looking at a team that has been very successful in their prior life, even if it's their first deal, like this was my first deal, but I've been successful in my prior business. My partners have been successful. And then we partnered with someone who was experienced, who had done many deals, and they were sort of our mentor throughout the process. So I would not mark off investing with a first-time team at all, because I think some of those turn out the best because they work the hardest. We're very, very, very involved in the asset management and overseeing the third-party property management company. I mean, we are on the phone daily with them during this takeover process and checking every little thing and not letting things fall through the cracks. So I think newer teams are very energetic and, aggressive and can do a great job on a first deal, but I would want to make sure that they were partnered with somebody who was experienced.